And I'm going to go ahead and share some slides. Great. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We are recording this program. My name is Jen Miroff. I'm the chair of the Legislative Action Committee for the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts. And we're so grateful that you're joining us tonight to hear about such an important mission critical issue across the Commonwealth, affordable housing. And we're pleased to introduce our legislative specialists, Lori Stewart and Lucy Kennedy. And we're also pleased to feature Renee Spencer of League of Women Voters of Wellesley. Let's see if I can advance my slide. There we go. Can everyone see my slide? Great. So before we start, we just wanted to review our community norms. Want to make sure everyone is kind and respectful. We want to assume positive intent. We want to bring our full selves and limit distractions. So if everyone can mute if they're not speaking, that would be amazing. We want to use the chat feature to ask questions. We will have a Q&A section at the end of our program. We're happy to answer your questions. And feel free to message staff, Bryn or me in the chat with comments and concerns. Great. So just to review our agenda tonight, we're just going to give you some background on what the Legislative Action Committee does. We're going to talk about where you can find our positions, League of Women Voters positions to take action. We're going to review the housing bond bill. Normally we don't cover bond bills, but this is a wonderful news that Governor Healy has filed a housing bond bill. The last bond bill was filed in 2018. And this is an opportunity and a great vehicle to move 3 of our bills that we support this session in affordable housing. So the bond bill, and Lori and Lucy will go into this in more detail, but it includes 3 of our bills. Well, 2 and 1 we want to add, which will be covered in our call to action. It covers the real estate transfer fee bill, eviction ceiling. We want to strengthen those protections for eviction ceiling in the bond bill. And we're going to talk about adding access to counsel. And then Lucy will go over all of our LWVMA supported bills, not in the bond bill, and then we'll take some questions. Great. So what is the Legislative Action Committee? Just to let you know, the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts is nonpartisan and that we do not endorse political candidates or political parties, but we do take positions on issues. We have about 20 plus volunteer specialists who drive our advocacy work. We select and monitor about 170 bills in each 2-year session. We submit written testimony and present oral testimony during committee hearings. We suggest advocacy actions that local leagues and members can take, and we organize educational events. And we are guided by League of Women Voters in Massachusetts program priorities set at convention. And so how do we choose the bills that we follow each 2-year session? First, we make sure we have a position to support or oppose the bill through US or Massachusetts position books. Does it have broad policy implications across the Commonwealth? Is it affecting a large number of people, the most number of people it can affect throughout the Commonwealth? Does it have strong support from coalition partners? So for example, we work with the Election Modernization Coalition, we work with the Common Start Coalition, and we also look at, what's the likelihood of passage? How many co-sponsors did it have last session? Was it favorably reported out of session? So we try to take in all these factors into account when we choose the bills that we support. These are our position books. At the US level, we have impact on issues, and Massachusetts level, we have where we stand. So I just wanted to show you those.
What?
And these,
I'm listening.
Thanks. And these are where you can find our positions. I won't read them in detail now, but we will be sharing the recording of this program and the slides in PDF format. So you can just click on the links and read the positions and the call to action and so forth. And you can see all the bills that we support on our website at lwvma.org. There's an advocacy tab. And right at the top, you'll see the bills that we support for affordable housing in the top section. And you can click on the summary. You'll see the summary on the left-hand side, which you can either click on to read or download. And also you see on the right-hand side, we've submitted written testimony to the joint committees on each one of the bills, and you're able to read it and download it there as well. So where are we in the legislative calendar right now? So we're in the second year of the 2-year session. Formal sessions end July 31st, 2024, and there have been 7,880 bills filed this session. So close to 8,000 bills have been filed, and they all have to have a hearing. So by February 7th, 2024, that's the deadline to report all the bills out of their joint committees. It's called Joint Rule 10 Day, coming up really quickly. So the bills either receive a report favorable out of committee, they can receive an extension, they can be sent to study, which means they're done for the session. But February 7th is a really big date coming up quickly. So that's why we're so glad you're here to talk about ways you can act on the bills we support. And Lori's going to talk more about the bond bill hearing tomorrow, which is January 18th at 11. And you can watch that at malegislature.gov. And now I will turn it over to Lucy.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks everyone for being here. Governor Healy has made affordable housing a priority and has recognized that we have a shortage of at least 200,000 homes in Massachusetts, including a shortage of 40,000 affordable homes. And she's reacted to that by making it a priority in her engagements, undertaking the Affordable Homes Act that Lori will tell you more about, which is the largest housing investment in Massachusetts history. And she's appointed a new cabinet level position, a Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities at Augustus. So I will turn it over to, I think, Lori, to talk about the Affordable Homes Act.
Lori, are you there?
Sorry, I'm off mute, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. It's nice to see everyone here tonight. The Affordable Homes Act is a $4.1 billion bond bill filed on January 18th. And the thing that's really cool about this bill is that it's multifaceted. It has a broad approach to different ways that we can fix the affordable housing crisis. And it does include important tenant rights pieces and the real estate transfer fee bill. So we will also be asking to add access to counsel, and I'll go into that more, but it's really important that if we can take action tonight, I've been told that the league is really valued in this coalition that we're working with the access to counsel and eviction ceiling because of who we are, because we're nonpartisan, because we are very methodical, and when we come to positions, we don't just we're very structured, and we study things. It's involved, so we will play a very important role, and hopefully people will take action tonight.
I'll talk a little bit about one of the bills that's folded into the Affordable Homes Act. That's giving communities an option for implementing a real estate transfer fee and sending that all to affordable housing. Quick background, started with the most expensive area in Massachusetts, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, where the gap between the selling price of many homes and the availability of houses for the people who work there is really huge. So they started out with saying, well, any home over $1 million, you can impose a fee of 0.5% to 2% on the sales price. And in fact, a number of towns have already set that in place. So this is a bill to give all towns in Massachusetts permission on a local level to make some choices about where they want that maximum or minimum rather to be. It's at the median price now for your community, which is generally more like 750,000 than $1 million. And the community gets to choose whether they want the fee to be 0.5% or 2%. And they can go higher than this minimum base, but not lower. It includes exceptions for things like inheritance, divorce settlements, and is going to generate at least several million in additional revenue for affordable housing. A study of 8 communities that already had done this did generate a couple of $1 million in 2019.
Okay, now we'll move on to access to counsel. The League of Women Voters Massachusetts has joined over 240 organizations, and we will put a link of the organizations in the chat. So we're a coalition of 240 organizations supporting access to counsel, and Attorney General Andrea Campbell, who grew up in public housing, is also a very, very strong supporter. And she testified in favor of this bill. And I believe someone will put a link to that in the chat as well. Access to counsel is, I can't even begin to say how much this is needed. I think sometimes people don't think that eviction will affect people in the league, but it does. You know, I've been in housing court myself without an attorney, and you'll hear from a league member from Wellesley, Renee Spencer, will speak to us tonight, and it's just a blessing to hear her speak because she really speaks truth to power, and she's one of us. She's a leaguer, and you just have to hear her. We are calling for access to counsel to be added to the housing bond bill. And as was mentioned, there will be a housing committee hearing tomorrow where I will be testifying with Renee. Additionally, we've requested that access to counsel be added to the FY25 budget. And I believe that we'll be putting our letter in the chat. We are trying to get access to counsel however we can get it. It's a full court press, to use my favorite sports analogy. Right now, 4 states, 17 cities, and 1 county have access to counsel. It's really time for Massachusetts to join the group. And it also just should be known that we're asking for full legal representation from start to finish. We're not asking for an advice from lawyer of the day. The advocates for this bill, including the League of Women Voters, feel that nothing short of full legal representation is what we want. So with that, I'm going to introduce Renee Spencer. She is a member of our League of Women Voters Wellesley chapter, excuse me, and she's just wonderful. So go, Renee.
Gotta unmute. Okay, thank you for having me. I never thought that I would become homeless, but I did. Hi, my name is Renee Spencer. I'm a public housing tenant in Wellesley and resident board member on the Wellesley Housing Authority Board. I am also a proud member of the League of Women Voters. I was homeless for 4 years after an eviction process that should have gone differently. 12 years ago, the Wellesley Housing Authority brought eviction proceedings against me for non-payment of rent. For 32 years, I had been a good tenant. I was very active in public service. I helped other tenants in my community and raised my son in the apartment I was evicted from. He was away at college when I fell behind on rent. I was working hard, holding 2 jobs, but it wasn't enough. One day I came home to an eviction notice on my door. I will never forget it. The next week I went to court by myself with over $500 cash to put towards a payment plan with the Housing Authority. I planned to work with the Housing Authority to pay what I owed, and I thought my long history as a responsible tenant would help me negotiate a payment plan. I was wrong, I was alone, and I was unrepresented. The Housing Authority had a lawyer, I didn't. In court, I tried to explain my long history spanning decades with Housing Authority and made clear that I had been a good tenant for over 32 years. I just needed a little help. The judge urged the Housing Authority's attorney to negotiate with me because I had come to court with money in hand to put towards a payment plan. But the Housing Authority's attorney refused, so I was evicted. I was devastated and I was homeless. After the initial shock wore off, I packed my things into my car and moved in with my sister a couple of days later. For 4 years, I relied on friends and family for shelter. 4 long years. It was embarrassing. And I walked away from public service and from helping tenants because of the trauma. After some time, my eviction motivated me to help other tenants. I am now back as a tenant in Wellesley Public Housing and was appointed as commissioner for the Wellesley Housing Authority Board. As I stated, I am also a member of the League of Women Voters. I am a Wellesley Town Meeting member and a board member on Wellesley Friendly Aid. I know better than most the difference a lawyer can make because I was unrepresented. It feels like when you're by yourself in an eviction, you have no chance at all. Having a lawyer on your side is the difference between staying in your home or being forced to leave without your control. The amount of unhoused in our state is increasing, and the Access to Counsel program could be a way for so many to keep their homes. Everyone deserves a home. We need to establish Access to Counsel program in Massachusetts. Access to Counsel should be part of this bond bill. So many tenants across Massachusetts desperately need it. No one should have to face evictions alone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Renee, for
Thank you.
sharing your very powerful experience with us. We are, as Lori said, blessed to have you here.
Thank
So
you.
now
Thank you for
I will
having me.
return. And thank you, Annette Duke from Mass Law Reform Institute, for being with us tonight. So I'll go back to the slides. Thanks for bearing with us here.
Okay, so if it's nice to hear that Renee continued to fight and continues to fight today for other people so that they'll have a right to counsel in eviction proceedings. But there's another side to this too. This is eviction record sealing or eviction sealing. When Renee was evicted, she then got an eviction record, which is public record for everyone to see. And the database is being used as an unofficial tenant screening tool for anybody to use. And it doesn't really indicate what happened in court, and it just stays with you. So which perpetuates housing instability. So we're hoping that eviction ceiling, which is in the bond bill. We're hoping that we can make it stronger. Attorney General Campbell supports eviction ceiling. Senator Edwards, who's the Senate chair of the Housing Committee, has been an eviction record ceiling champion, and she will be chairing the hearing. Specifically, what we're going to be asking for is to strengthen some of the provisions. We want that if a case is dismissed, if a tenant wins, or the eviction is not their fault, the court will automatically seal the case. It takes too much effort for people to go back and fill out paperwork. It takes time from the court. If things aren't automatically sealed, they're not going to get sealed at the rate that people need them to be sealed. Additionally, in non-payment cases, tenants can seal their eviction record after 14 days of paying a judgment, and after 4 years if they are unable to pay because of economic hardship or other good cause reasons. The third point that we're emphasizing is that we want to clarify that the court should have the discretion to consider disability and domestic violence issues in fault cases and to adjust the sealing process accordingly. So we have a call to action. And I just want everybody to remember here that we do have a lot of power with the League of Women Voters. And if people can take action after tonight, tomorrow, the next day, please do it, because we need the legislature, we need the Joint Housing Committee to hear that the League really cares about this issue. We want them to know that it affects our members. If you have someone that represents you and they sit on the Joint Housing Committee, we're asking you to urge them to strengthen eviction ceiling protections in the bond bill, and we want them to add access to counsel. If your state representative and state senator are not on the Joint Committee for Housing, we still want you to urge them to urge leadership to do the same thing. Strengthen eviction ceiling protections and add access to counsel to the bond bill. And we are going to be mailing you sample scripts so you can take action. And I would be so thankful, and Renee would be thankful, and all of the tenants that go to housing court and the low income owner occupants would be so grateful if we could get access to counsel and we could get eviction ceiling. Next slide. Specifically, if you can put extra pressure on the chair and the vice chair of the Joint Housing Committee, we have Senator Edwards, Senator Keenan, Rep. Arciero, Rep. Kilcoyne. We really want to put pressure on them. And then I'm going to pass this to Lucy, and she will go into other bills that we are supporting.
Lucy, you're welcome to come off mute if you can hear us. We haven't heard you yet.
Sorry.
No.
These are called other bills only because they're not filed with the bond bill, the Affordable Homes Act that Lori just talked about. One is a piece of legislation to codify the Massachusetts rental voucher program. The rental voucher program sort of makes up the difference between what is available to you if you're making 80% or less of median income in your area, and what the market is offering, and what it kind of adds it up so it is no more than, or takes down the price to you, so it's no more than 30% of your income. So you get a voucher, you go to the approved properties, which my understanding is there's a huge waiting line for, but anyway, you can eventually get in. The problem with the current situation is it sort of starts from scratch each session. So this is a proposal which spells out the qualifications, says there are this many apartments, therefore we need this many vouchers, and appropriates the funds that are needed that are kind of on automatic each session. Next, this one is to promote, or actually it's to allow those who feel like zoning decisions in their local area discriminated against people making less than 80% of the area median income, or that prohibited particularly against families. Some examples might be prohibiting multifamily housing or limiting housing to having only one bedroom. It isn't a law that automatically trips a switch for legislation, but it sets up the conditions for an individual to bring legal action if he or she believes the zoning has blocked the possibility of affordable housing being available. The legislation also spells out how the community can respond if they think they have made the correct decision in their zoning. H-145 is an act for emergency housing assistance for children and families experiencing homelessness. I didn't know this, but apparently we have a right to shelter in this state, which in theory means anyone should be able to get into shelter when they need it. But it turns out that right now, more than half the families applying for emergency shelter are turned away because they don't have the right documentation or they can't prove they area. So this is a requirement that they be given shelter, and, kind of picture in your mind, this is someone who's in this weather living in their car, let's say. And they ask for this and they don't have to provide all this documentation. And finally, another addition potentially to community preservation revenue, which can be applied to affordable housing, is a surcharge to be put on documents, including municipal liens and documents filed with the registrar of deeds. And that turns us into the period for you to ask questions. Thank you all very much.
Great, thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Renee. So just to recap, we divided the presentation into two sections, basically. Action we need you to take this week related to the bond bill. So there are policies called outside section amendments in the bond bill. Those policies are two bills that we currently support, and we're asking for the Joint Committee on Housing to add another bill that we support, access to counsel, as part of the bond bill. And these have it's the best vehicle for passage this session. And then Lucy covered the policies and bills that are not covered in the bond bill that we still, we would like them reported favorably out of committee by the February 7th reporting deadline. So we've broken it down into two sections. So when we send you the slides, there are more resources here, and we will be sending you sample scripts. And also we wanted to share that Governor Healy's State of the Commonwealth address is tonight at 7. We're competing with the State of the Commonwealth, and we know she was planning to address the migrant shelter situation, and the governor has been issuing reports on that and working directly with the legislature, so that, for tonight, that's outside the scope of our discussion, but we're happy to do any research or answer any questions you have about that. But we may not have the answer at our fingertips right now. So with that, I'm going to stop share, and we can take questions. You can either use the raise hand feature, or you can type your question into the chat, and Lori and Lucy and Renee can help us answer them. Let me stop share. Great. So let's see if anything's in the chat already. Yes, so too small to read legislators to contact. Yes, so we're going to send a follow-up email to all the attendees tonight with very readable text. So we're happy to follow up with all this information so it's easier to have all in one place. Pat asks, what are the steps to get from committee to the floor for final passage? Yes, there are a number of steps. And for the bond bill, we could have a whole webinar just on the bond bill and all the steps it has to take. But basically, the general terms for a bill, when it's reported favorably out of the first committee, so let's say it's reported out of the Housing Committee favorably, then it gets sent to a second committee, typically Ways and Means. And then if it's reported favorably out of Ways and Means, it goes through another few steps before it gets called to the floor for a vote. And I'm happy to provide that detail for you. We have several presentations on how a bill actually gets passed in Massachusetts. But reporting out of the first committee is the first major hurdle. So by February 7th, then it gets assigned to a second committee, typically Ways and Means Committee. And from there goes through a few more iterations before it finally gets to the floor. From Linda, many towns have filed home rule petitions for option to impose real estate transfer fees to fund affordable housing. It seems that the bond bill will take most of these home rule petitions. Correct, yes. So this will be part, it's when Governor Healy filed the bill, that is included in there. So that would be a huge win. So we're grateful that those outside sections are included. That policy is included in the bond bill. We don't expect for it to have any changes, correct? Maybe Annette knows more about that, but I believe that wouldn't be a change that the Housing Committee would make.
No, but I just got some hot news.
Oh, cool. Let's hear.
It sounds like Maura may testify tomorrow at the bond hearing.
Oh, exciting.
Hmm.
See whether that happens, but this just came through the text.
Hmm.
So
Very cool.
didn't answer your question, but
Hopefully we'll hear her testimony and she can shed some light on some of these sections. Great. Would anyone, feel free to raise your hand. Come off mute. Stefan?
This is sort of an inside technical question, but I heard that home rule petitions aren't bound by that same February 7th deadline, and I wasn't sure if that was a rumor or if that was true, that they don't expire if they haven't been favorably reported, but
I'm not sure. Nancy Brumback, do you know the answer to that? Or we can research it and find out. I would be
No, I don't know.
surprised. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never heard that, but we can find
I
out.
always assumed they were, but I don't
I
know.
assume they were too. I'm pretty sure everything has to be reported out by February 7th,
Okay.
or if it's in healthcare financing, it's March 26th, 27th. Healthcare financing is the only committee whose bills have a later date.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Are you on, so Lori, and you said you're on the agenda for tomorrow to testify?
Yes, we'll be testifying as a panel. Renee's going to lead off and I'm going to be her backup singer. So we're really looking forward to it. As you can hear, she has a lot to say and she usually gets a great amount of applause. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
And we will post the written testimony to our website so you can read it there. Let's see. From Keith, is there any provision in the bond bill to help a homeowner currently living in an affordable house to maintain their house? Annette, do you know?
that's a great question. Just so you know that the access to council bill that Lori talked about does also provide owner-occupant landlords with legal representation if they're evicting a tenant. So unlike any other access to council bill across the country, Massachusetts would be different in this. realm. It would actually provide owner occupants with free legal representation. The Volunteer Lawyers Project does that right now, so it's based on that. But I think I don't know the answer to your question in terms of other resources that might be available in terms of funding for, you know, maintenance or lead paint. There used to be those types of programs, but it's a good question. I can try and figure that out tomorrow in between the hearing.
You know, chapa.org, chapa.org has a wonderful resource page on the bond bill and all of its specifics. They have a summary of each one of the sections, so maybe we can check there and see if that's there. Wow. Great. Any other questions for our esteemed panel? Any last questions in the chat? Would you like to come off mute? Everyone's geared up and ready for action. Right. Okay. Any final words, Lori, Lucy?
I
Renee?
have one final or something.
Please.
I don't know if it's final, but I worked on the campaign to make the housing court statewide years ago. And we were successful because at the very end, women's groups stepped in and they started to make calls. And I feel like that the women in this state have a lot of power. And I'm really grateful for the work that Lori has been doing to keep the pressure on, to do access to counsel, to do record sealing. They're complicated issues. And it's been great to have Lori part of the advisory committee. So I want to thank her immensely. I also want to thank Renee. I didn't actually realize Renee was a league member until just recently. I've testified with Renee for years. I'm not going to testify with her tomorrow. I'm going to miss that. But Lori is, because Renee's a league member, and it will be very powerful tomorrow to have the league represented by Lori and Renee. And I think that they're going to do you guys justice tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Just a quick note, Jen, I put the CHAPA link in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. That has a great resource. So I think it was Keith, you were looking for that question. We'll search the CHAPA website as well. And we can share the link in the resource kit. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Good luck, Renee. Good luck, Lori, tomorrow. We will be sharing all of these resources, and we hope you will take action and contact your state rep and state senator in support of these mission critical bills. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Bravo. Good luck. Thank you.